Hey, welcome back to another episode of The Technology Alchemist, your source for technology advice, strategic technology planning, technology coaching, time-saving advice, and a pragmatic look at increasing revenue and profit through your technology engine. I'm your host, the Technology Alchemist himself, Mike Mahoney. So our sponsor is your Virtual CTO. Your Virtual CTO is a technology services company specializing in increasing your revenue and profit through a close examination of your technology engine. Your Virtual CTO offers exclusive coaching for business leaders. That is the only business coaching program that includes technology as part of the program. If you want to learn how you can make more money by tuning up your technology engine, head on over to getyourvirtualcto.com. So on today's episode, we have Ben Wolff. He's the co-founder and CEO of ProTripper, a full-service guest communications and pricing solution for property managers, and Blink Hospitality, a portfolio of vacation rentals he grew to hundreds of properties across the United States over the past 3 years. Ben previously ran business development for a global vacation rental management firm, worked as a strategy consultant at McKinsey, and graduated from NYU Stern. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thanks, Mike.
And I'm repping your company.
And I pulled mine out too. I love these hats. I got to get some more. We got these before we went to the Philippines to visit my guest communication team over there. So,
well, it's very white, that I will say. But I like it, and I love the colors too. But so why don't you tell me? So how did you decide to start your businesses?
So I kind of got the entrepreneurial itch when I would say, a freshman in college. It started by, promoting off-campus events and, club parties and things like that. And I also got involved in some entrepreneurship classes at the university and, building business plans and things like that. And that, progressed and, I went to NYU. I transferred from another university to NYU in my junior year. And when I was there, the kind of tech startup scene in New York was really blowing up. I don't know if you remember Foursquare, but Twitter was still relatively new, and Silicon Alley was kind of blowing up. And so I really was drawn to that, became very interested in it, met a lot of people in that world. So, I knew I wanted to start something. It was just a matter of when. And I've started various other small businesses throughout my career. And this business actually started from, I had an event company prior. And, part of my event company, we'd provide temporary housing for folks in the entertainment industry. So photographers, models, actors, people like that when they were in town. And we had this communal housing concept for them. That was, kind of associated with our event promotion brand. And because of that, I had apartments in New York City. And that's actually what led to the first vacation rental units that we had before New York City kind of, really cracked down on Airbnbs and short-term rentals. We had some properties there that, we were making more money doing that than what we were doing before with the communal housing. So I kind of stumbled into it. I actually had a job doing business development with another vacation rental company, and I got a couple properties that they were managing for me. And then, after doing that, getting a couple properties, they were profitable. I decided that I wanted to build that portfolio. And over time, they got a little bit top heavy. They had, took on too much cost locally. And they ultimately kind of went belly up. And so I ended up having these units that I had to figure out how to manage on my own, and kind of learning from their mistakes. I decided to offshore and kind of keep things as lean as possible and leverage technology where we could to really, keep our operating model very lean and adaptable, which, really helped us during COVID as well. So, yeah.
Well, you used the term offshore team, which scares a lot of people. And I find with my coaching clients that they are afraid of offshore teams. So what process did you use to build your team?
So the process that I've actually been outsourcing for a while. So I outsourced when I had other jobs as well. I would outsource virtual assistants to just help me with like business development work and sales pitch decks and stuff like that. So I kind of got tapped into it through other jobs where I had these virtual assistants. And, guest communication I knew was an area that, we could definitely outsource. So I used Upwork, which is a platform that, I've used before to hire virtual assistants. And I, put up an ad and, invited a bunch of, top tier VAs to it, VA virtual assistant, and interviewed them and had them do like test tasks and things like that to kind of vet them. And ultimately found one that, actually I found two that I really liked. And so I hired both of them, and one really turned out to be by far the shining star, who's still with us, and you've probably heard of from your wife who works with us. Charis is just, she's just blossomed into not just an amazing VA, but an amazing manager, and helped assemble this, whole team, from people that she knows and past people that she's worked with. So it all started from finding her on Upwork, and, she's kind of helped assemble the team, and, I've tried to take care of them as best I can, as an owner. And by doing that, I think it's led us to be able to recruit a lot of talented folks that she knows.
Well, you mentioned my wife works with you, and one of the things I've observed, I've been managing offshore teams for probably 15 years now, and I could tell you a story of I worked at a company that split into two, and our CEO was investing in the other company, and he kept saying to me, how come you're using the same offshore team as the other guys, but you're getting work done and they're getting nothing done? And I feel like I'm throwing money into this giant barrel and, lighting it on fire. And it turned out that, the difference was it's similar to what you're talking about. I treated them like they were working with me in the physical location where I was. I didn't treat them like they were some contractor that I should just shoot an email to. And the other company that's literally what they were doing. 5 p.m., here's a list of 10 tasks for you to do tonight. Well, of course, 8 of them would have questions attached to them. So the next day, only 2 things got done. They'd respond to the questions. Now maybe 7 things were left and only 1 thing got done. It would take forever to get done. Whereas what I would do is have regular meetings with them. And I know you do that. You have regular meetings with your team. And I think that's the best strategy. I've recently learned, I've tried now 3 times to have a main executive assistant who helps me with pretty much everything that I do in my business, but I'm finding that it doesn't work because these people are really, if you find somebody, we've been tapping into Belize a lot, and the people in Belize are really good at one thing or another thing or another thing, but when you try to put them all together, it doesn't work. So I've recently converted to, I have a person who does one set of things for me. I have another person who does another set of things for me. And while it's a bit more management for me, stuff's getting done, and that's really the objective, right? So how has technology, because obviously you have offshore team, how has technology helped you to run your business and manage your team?
So, I think that everything from, messaging platforms like WhatsApp, that's primarily what we use. Just makes it really easy to communicate, have multiple threads, share photos, videos, whatever it is that we need to share to kind of, teach them how to do things, or, teach amongst themselves as well. I think they use it for all of that. We also use Trello, as a way to kind of keep track of information about all the properties, and so hopefully they're not asking the same questions over and over again. Because the team's grown. We have 20 people now. You have one person who asks the question. You don't want the same person asking the same question, 2 days later. So we really trying to sort of impress upon them the importance of putting that information in Trello so it's easily accessible to the other folks. So yeah, we use WhatsApp, we use Trello, we use Google Voice. We've tried to leverage a lot of, free or freemium, products out there. We use Asana, just trying to keep costs low and keep things lean, like I was saying. So we use Asana to designate tasks as well, and, determine who's going to do certain tasks. We use G Drive. I could go on and on. We use technology in all aspects, and most of the platforms we're using are platforms that are free or very low cost, and that are very easy to collaborate. Like G Drive, we can easily collaborate with them in the Philippines and me in Austin or Victoria in Southern California. And, there's no version control issues. There's no lag. There's no, we're all editing sort of real time on the same documents, and then WhatsApp, and Google Voice and these other platforms that are just allowing us to communicate for free or virtually for free, despite being, hundreds of thousands of miles apart.
What made you choose WhatsApp over, say, something like Slack or Skype or something of that nature?
So the reason that we started using WhatsApp I think the main reason was that in a lot of cases we are using WhatsApp with our clients as well. So, and it's a much sort of lower barrier to entry because most people have WhatsApp, or at least have heard of it. Either way, it's free. It's very easy to use, very intuitive. It's like, consumer facing. It's not a business, facing product. So it's very easy for us to ask a client to hop on WhatsApp, get on a group thread with them to be able to communicate with them. I think at some point we may develop our own proprietary system and, have it look a little more, like white glove-ish, if you will, with kind of the Blink branding and whatnot. But I mean, at this point, especially with everything going on, I'm happy that we've, been able to leverage existing technology out there. And, I mean, in some senses it's a minimum viable product, but it works. And we haven't had the need to kind of, spend to rebrand it to make it look like it's our own.
That's it. That's a very smart move because that's actually, one of the programs we offer, we guarantee we can increase someone's profit 10% minimum. Mm-hmm. And one of the easiest ways to do that is the low hanging fruit like that. I'll find people are using 5 softwares that all do the same thing, but they're using one for one thing, one for something else. And then you say, well, why? Just use one. And yeah, maybe that one feature isn't as great as the other one, but why are you paying all of this money for things that are all doing the same thing? Makes no sense. And like you mentioned, minimum viable product. I think that's a key too, is figure out what your needs are and then find something that will meet those needs as best as can. You're not going to get perfection, but you'll get there. And you're proving that you can run a pretty large scale business without having to spend a fortune on technology. And to me, that's a real big key. I mean, when we started our business, that was a big one for us. I'm big on having processes, and Victoria at the time was not real big on having processes. So we had to get the software that she would use, and I felt comfortable was controlling what I needed to have controlled. And we've evolved over time to other software, but only because our needs grew more than anything else. But again, just like you, we look for anything it either is free or super cheap, because I am of the philosophy that spending all of your profit on stuff like that is just crazy. I recently saw a Shark Tank episode where she was making $120,000 and she spent $100,000 to obtain the customers, and I thought, wow, how is that sustainable over the long run, right? So, the world's kind of changed, obviously, as we all know. How has this pandemic changed how you do business?
I mean, it's really turned it on its head is what I can tell you from the get-go. I mean, certainly nothing any of us saw coming. It's decimated our industry. I mean, I'm grateful that I don't have 50,000 hotel rooms to worry about filling. You know what I mean? I can't imagine being a Hilton or a Marriott or, one of these companies and they're getting government bailouts, I'm sure, at some point to sustain. But I'm grateful that we are small and nimble and have kept our team very lean. And also because we've offshored, we've actually been able to retain more of our team because, the labor is so much less expensive relatively that, firing half that team doesn't really move the needle for us. So I'd rather, keep them so I have the strong, cohesive group as, hopefully things turn around. But yeah, I mean, we had to make a lot of shifts. I mean, the first thing I tried to do, first 2 things was how do I reduce costs as much as possible? And then how do I bring some revenue in the door, which was basically trying to convert all of our listings into long-term rentals. So instead of short-term rentals, weekend stays, week-long stays, I actually think the industry calls it midterm stays, not long-term. It's 2 weeks to 3 months is kind of the sweet spot of where we've tried to transition so that, I didn't want to lock up our places for a year in hopes that, hopefully things will pick back up a little bit. And I mean, we finally started to see that a little bit in some of the markets in the Northeast. Some of our other markets are having a resurgence. So those are kind of getting hit now and kind of closing down again. But the midterm stays have helped a lot. Month-long bookings, 2-week bookings, things like that. And in sort of concert with that, working with our landlords and basically just, being like, this is, force majeure events. None of us could have predicted this. We're actually not able to safely conduct business, as we have been, let alone if we, had people that were traveling. So we were able to negotiate with the landlords. I mean, partially because, I don't think they thought they had much better options, you know what I mean, than to keep us around. So it's like, what are you going to do if we leave? Try and find a long-term tenant in the midst of a pandemic. It's not necessarily easy to do. So they were willing to work with us. I think it's also a testament to, relationships that we've built with them. We've always paid on time. We've never asked for consent. We've never asked for anything before. So I think when I came and asked this time, they were, ready and willing to listen and work with us. And basically just pitched it as like, hey, like, if you want us to be around for the long haul and to kind of make it and survive, then, I need you guys to work with us in this time of need. So, and pretty much all of them were able to do something for us. And I opted for trying to get reduced rent instead of instead of pushing the rent down the road, having to pay it back later. Instead of delayed payments, I tried to negotiate just reduced rent. And, the pitch to them is like, hey, you're getting some money now. And the benefit for us was that we're not digging ourselves into this pile of debt hole that we have to dig ourselves out of later. So it's like, how do we, reduce our rent to the level that we can actually cover it or close to cover it with these midterm stays while we're, waiting for things to hopefully turn around a little bit. So we did that. Like I said, didn't really cut much of anyone on the team. We trimmed hours a little bit on the offshore team just because we didn't need the same capacity, so we trimmed hours a bit. Though they were still quite busy fielding all the cancellation requests and all of that, it was still pretty busy for a while there. So we trimmed the team, the hours a little bit without, I don't think we fired anyone that wasn't performance based. We looked for government assistance where we could, we applied for the PPP or we applied for the EIDL, both of which we were able to obtain, which is great. That EIDL loan, you have to pay it back. You don't have to start paying it back for a year. And the interest rate is as low as you're ever going to find anywhere.
Yeah.
So, it's basically free money, in terms of, trying to sustain ourselves and make sure we have that. Thankfully, we haven't had to dip into that much yet because we've been able to reduce costs so much and, get some of these midterm stays. But, with seeing these second waves and stuff like that, it's definitely nice to have the security blanket. So
talk to me about reputation. So both reputation with your clients and reputation with your team. How important is maintaining a solid reputation with both sides?
Yeah, so I try to take a team first approach because I believe that if the team is happy, then that will flow down to better treatment and willingness to listen to customers and try to, improve their experience as much as possible. I feel like if you have a disgruntled team, then it's harder for them to, be friendly and willing to bend over backwards to help a customer. So we really try to take that approach. I picked the Philippines to outsource because in all of my dealings with VAs, I have found Filipinos to be the most amenable, friendly, just their voice is soothing, so I've really found that working with the Filipinos has been a great decision in terms of, having good relationships with our customers who they talk to on a daily basis that are renting our units.
Well, and obviously, as you spoke to before, having a good reputation with your landlords that you work with work to your benefit as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I wasn't thinking on that side. I was thinking more guest related. But yeah, certainly relationships with our landlords, relationships with our contractors, the people that clean our units and And, that's actually another area, all of our local contractors, because I talked about our offshore team in the Philippines, but clearly there's a lot of work to be done on the ground with short-term rentals. There's cleaning, maintenance, guests get locked out, whatever it may be, sort of issues that happen on the ground. And that was actually another group supplier of us that I didn't try to penny pinch at all. I mean, I didn't ask them to reduce their rates because, the number of cleanings they were doing dropped off a cliff. So I already knew how much they were hurting. So, I didn't ask them to cut their rates even further. And I encouraged them to apply for PPP, IDL, some of the things that we were doing to hopefully allow them to sustain themselves as well. But yeah, we built, really long-term, strong relationships with our local suppliers, with our landlords. We have a lot of landlords that whenever they get a new property, they bring it to us first because they know they're going to get paid rent on time. They know I'm going to be transparent. They know we're going to take care of the property. They know that, if it's a small maintenance issue, we're probably going to take care of it ourselves instead of asking them to do it because it's just faster, to just do it ourselves. And as opposed to a tenant that, every little thing they're calling on the landlord to come fix. So, there's a lot of reasons that it makes sense for them to want to continue to work with us.
So with the pandemic going on and the concern about, people getting infected, tell me what you're doing to make sure that any guest that chooses to book a stay with you feels comfortable and safe.
Sure. Yeah. So we have some of that listed on our listings. So we have it in the description, what we do in terms of our cleanliness standards. We follow the CDC guidelines. We even go above and beyond that. We use airborne sanitation. So we use OZM devices in a lot of our markets. We started doing it in New York just because, we have some units in New York and Jersey City. And at the sort of height of the pandemic, we wanted to take every precaution that we could. So we used the OZM devices. We also made sure there was at least 24 and in some cases up to 72 hours between stays, depending on the market and, how kind of severe the surges were and how prevalent COVID was. And, normal disinfectant, all of our cleaners are wearing masks and gloves and, disinfecting all surfaces as they would normally. But that in conjunction with the airborne cleaner and having, a certain gap between guests, that's been what we've done to try to limit risk.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, advertising it is really smart because I had occasion to be in Vegas for a weekend, and I actually felt safer there than I do here in California because we have actually stricter rules here, but they were actually enforcing the rules there. And that's the difference to me is, you go to a hotel and they now have guards at every door that tell you, hey, you got to put a mask on. Can't come in if you don't have a mask. And then, of course, people put the mask on, walk by, take the mask off. And then all of a sudden there's another guy. Hey, he told you back there to put a mask on. If you don't put the mask on, you got to leave. And so you find pretty quickly people give up trying to game the system, but also just the whole concept, they don't come in and clean your room in between each day anymore because, people don't. I personally wouldn't have cared, but people are uncomfortable having a stranger come into the room and, potentially infect them. It was interesting to see, though, because it was all about the marketing. There were huge signs everywhere talking about these are the steps we're taking, these are the steps we want you to take, and together we can make it safer. And I think that for your industry is going to be huge going forward because people have this opinion when you talk to them that an Airbnb is not as clean as a hotel. I actually kind of think it's the other way. But they have that opinion, and you're going to have to overcome that opinion by doing what you're doing, which is brilliant. I mean, you have to make people comfortable, or they're not going to stay, especially long term, because they're going to wonder, well, who was here before me? So I think that's great. So we talked about your technology.
I just want to say one quick thing about the hotel versus vacation rental. And we've actually seen a lot of data that's supporting that people are preferring vacation rentals these days. Particularly urban areas, are just kind of hurting in general, but rural and suburban areas outside of the major cities, they're preferring vacation rentals to hotels. I think because it is that much more private. You're not having staff, all throughout. There's just less people that you're sharing surfaces with and, modes of transportation. So we're actually hopeful that this will help kind of some of that shift from hotels to vacation rentals, just viewing it as safer and all that. But it certainly is up to the community to express to guests all the precautions that we are taking, because we may not be viewed as much of a robust professional organization as maybe a hotel group. So we need hosts to really present all the things that we are doing to keep guests safe, so that guests think of short-term rentals as being as vigilant as a hotel would be, as you said.
Well, it totally makes sense, because that was my one complaint about staying in a large hotel, was when I leave there, even though there was maybe a tenth of the people staying there that would have been, there's still other people, whereas in an Airbnb unit, I can come and go. I'm not running into crowds of people as I leave and come back. I'm not waiting through a casino to get to my room. There was a lot of things that made me uncomfortable about the whole process, especially someone who's kind of on the close to the riskier side of things. I'm 55 years old, so it's like I'm right there. And it was nice to see. What irritates me here in California is I follow the rules. Why aren't other people following the rules? You kind of say that to yourself. At least in when I was in Vegas, they have face coverings. People are doing what they're supposed to do, and so you felt like, all right, well, I don't mind chipping in and doing my part if everyone else is going to do their part. So that's kind of interesting, though. I think maybe that's a marketing move you can use when things start to pick up, is comparison to well, we don't have big crowds that you have to go through and things like that. I mean, and it's great because it's not a scare tactic; it's the truth. That's the. I think my ex-wife works for the Marriott hotel chain, and they kind of use scare tactics of, well, you can trust that we are regimented and do these things, but you can't really trust that those people are doing that. And I actually don't agree with that. I think that you're using contractors to clean, and that's their livelihood, and so they're going to make sure that they don't mess up. That's just makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we really try to work with good people, and I think good people are going to do the right thing. They're going to try and limit risk as much as possible right now. Of course, they're worried about their reputation, but I mean, all of our cleaners, like, cleaning is what they do, so they take it really seriously, and anything they can do to, I guess, help to limit the spread of this, through their what they do. I mean, they're going to do it, and they have. So, yeah.
Great. Well, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you, if they want to book a stay, where they can do that?
Yeah, sure. So you can find us at stayblink.com. You'll see a list of our units there, and links to booking links as well. We also have a service called Pro Tripper, which is what Mike has a shirt there that's kind of covered up, but Pro Tripper is a service that we offer to other hosts. So, we established this guest communication team in the Philippines, and our other, I think, biggest core competency and value that we bring to management is dynamic pricing. So, we use dynamic pricing software. We also use our own internal pricing experts to sort of improve what the dynamic pricing engines do. So the pricing in conjunction with the guest communication is a service that we've decided to package and offer to other hosts and other managers. So, basically you can, and it's actually one way to change fixed to variable costs right now. So instead of having, your own inquiries team that's local, that's pretty expensive, or, revenue manager that's local or something like that, you could outsource pricing and or guest communications to us. And we do it on a percentage of bookings basis. So for 10% of bookings, you can have both of those services. And for 6%, you can have either one of them individually. So, and those numbers are negotiable. If it's somebody coming to us with 50 properties or, a large number of properties, sure, we'll do, bulk pricing discounts. So yeah, that's Pro Tripper. That's a brand and an offering that we launched last year, because we had really refined these services within Blink, and, we wanted to offer them to others. We had some people in our space asking us to use our team. So we were like, I guess we should package this and sell it as an offering.
That's so interesting. So I actually did a a stint as a CTO for a restaurant delivery service. And it was the same thing. We perfected so many of the processes in the industry that we started packaging them up and selling them as add-ons to people along with the software that we built. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to parallel. But thanks so much for being on. We really appreciate it. Anyone looking to book, definitely stablink.com and you'll get taken care of really well. Like he says, I think you're probably one of the few companies that do this that has such good dedicated customer service. And it was one of the things I wanted to highlight about your business because it's impressed me all along. And I feel like people need to know what kind of goes on behind the scenes. So anyway, again, thanks for being on, and thanks everyone for listening to the Technology Alchemist.